I'm Jessica Koss, a Garmin flight operations pilot with 1,500 hours of flight time. I have my ATP with a single pilot King Air type rating, and I have my CFII and MEI.
And I'm Stevie Triesenberg, a Garmin ambassador with 800 hours of flight time and a commercial pilot and flight instructor.
This is the Bonanza Showdown. Okay, Stevie, welcome to the Garmin hangar.
I'm so excited to be here.
Today we're going to be taking 2 flights in 2 Garmin-equipped Beechcraft Bonanzas to compare both their flight characteristics and their avionics to see which comes out on top. I'll be flying the A36 Bonanza. Stevie, what did you bring to the Garmin hangar today?
I'll be flying my C35 Bonanza, the one and only 21 Charlie.
You ready?
Let's go.
So walk me through the upgrades on your panel. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll go from left to right. On the left here is our radio stack. So on the top we have the GNC 355 GPS comm. Underneath that we have the GNC 255 nav comm. So we have 2 comms. Under that we have the GMA 345 audio panel, and underneath the audio panel we have the GTX 345 transponder. Underneath that, and on your side of the panel as well, you'll see we have the GSB 15 USB-C ports for charging your phone or your GoPros in flight. Then we'll move on to some more of the fun stuff. So right here we have our Garmin GI 275 attitude indicator and HSI, which are super nice. And then we have a third one over here, which is the EIS, the engine indicating system, which basically replaced everything on the side of the panel. And then underneath that, we have the one and only GFC 500 autopilot with yaw damper. Best part. So Stevie, the genesis of the GI 275 was developed really for somebody just like you know, who wants to maintain that vintage look and feel of the panel without cutting into it and creating an overly excessive installation. So the GI 275, in your case, we were able to just literally pull the instrument out, put a GI 275 in, and you get even more capability built in with that. So a big reason that I picked the 275s was to maintain the vintage feel of this airplane, because it truly is like a classic vintage airplane, right? Like, it's not old, it's vintage. That's what we always say. And there's so much about this airplane that I wanted to maintain in its character when I upgraded, and the 275s made it super easy to do that with the round gauges. But I mean, we were able to keep all these piano keys down here. The shop, Neil Aviation, just went above and beyond with keeping all the vintage touches. So the piano keys, this, detailing you see here, even this Beechcraft logo is from the original instrument cluster that was right in the center here where the autopilot was. We also kept the swing over yoke, so we can flip that back and forth. And there's some other things in here that we also kept. So behind us, for example, this box back here, you put ice in there, and it's called a swamp cooler, and it air conditions the airplane. So I know I said I don't have air conditioning, and the A36 does, but I kind of do, kind of, sort of. So we kept a lot of those, fun things like that, while also making the airplane seem like it's brand new. So that was cool. There's a lot of things in this airplane that are like little, touches of history. But like even things like your gear and like literally it's just like kind of all over. It's completely different. It's definitely not like ergonomically designed like the new planes are. Like, look at the mixture control. It's just this little tiny knob down here. Like, it's completely different. Like, the order of everything is just like very strange. Even the electric prop is like, we didn't even touch on that. The prop is electric, and it, there's an auto mode and a manual mode, which I call sport mode. Like, it's just, there's so much about this airplane that you just would not see in any airplane today. The radios on the left, for example, not having the 6-pack, radios on the right. It's truly a left seat pilot airplane, not designed to be flown from the right seat. Sorry, but that's totally fine. But what's nice about the way that the Garmin products were designed is that you can put them on the left or you can put them on the right. Kind of depends however you fly. In your case, you prefer to have them on the left, and they're small and slim enough, compact enough that you have the capability to do that while also putting your autopilot in the middle if you want to. Exactly. That's actually one thing I was super worried about, was that not everything would fit here. And before, I actually had my transponder was down in this like lower rack where it was super hard to reach, but everything fits. you know, it's all very readable and usable, and it's just right there, kind of line of sight. So it's super nice to have over there. So, Stevie, you said you didn't have a lot of glass experience. What was it like transitioning from the analog gauges to like the GI-275 and all the digital instrumentation that you have? I was very intimidated by it at first. Like, it's almost like, you know, the first 30 minutes you're in the plane, it's kind of information overload and you're just trying to figure out where to look. But after 30 minutes, it's very, very easy. You just start to, you know, learn where to look for things, especially on like the attitude indicator and the engine indicating system. And now my scan is like seamless. I wish I could have taken you flying in this plane before the upgrade, because you'd be shocked by the difference. Like it's interesting because the plane, like, it's so much more capable. The feel is exactly the same. Like, everything is where I'm used to, and it just feels the same, but it's a completely different panel. Biggest changes, though, are definitely the engine indicating system and the autopilot. I had, like, no autopilot experience before this. I'm a professional pilot in that I fly professionally, but I don't do it for a career, and I feel like that's where a lot of people get that autopilot experience. Maybe 2 of my, like, 700-something hours have been with an autopilot, and it's just made managing everything so much easier. And I mean, just like the altitude capture, it's just seamless. It worked just from the minute it was put in. Like, the installation was just so good that there were no, like, you know, it doesn't wag back and forth. It doesn't, you know, snake and dragon, whatever you want to say. Yeah. It just worked. It was awesome. I thought it would take me time to like kind of trust it and learn to like use it, but it was super easy to learn, and it's been awesome so far. I mean, it flew me all the way from California to Oshkosh to Michigan to now Kansas City. So yeah. It's definitely just changed how I fly cross countries. And then the second thing, indicating system, I mean, just the sheer amount of information I get makes managing my engine so much easier to do it, and I'm able to manage it better in a way that I just didn't have the information to do beforehand. So having all 6 CHTs, having all 6 EGTs, having lean assist, having, you know, all 3 of my fuel levels, fuel flow, pressure, like all just concise in the one gauge is super nice. Yeah. Okay, so that's the C35 Bonanza. Should we go take a spin in the A36? Now we're in Garmin's A36, Stevie. What do you think? It's awesome. There is a lot more glass in here than in my Bonanza, which is great. I think the situational awareness is much better. You have so much more information, so many different ways to configure everything, so it's really cool. So in Garmin's A36 here, Stevie, we have the GI-275, and then we have the 10-inch TXI flight display, which we can present in a full screen mode, or we can also do split screen. We can do split screen charts, moving map, as you can see, engine information. We have the GTN 750XI, the GTN 650XI, the GFC 600 autopilot, and then the TXI EIS engine monitoring system. A lot of it is similar to what's in my Bonanzas. It's the 750 and the 650 are like basically my 355, but with more capability, you know, with the transponder. They're expanded. So it's nice that you can view the MFD on this. You can view your map here. You can view your map down here. You can switch them all around. Like, there's so much configuration capability that you can just really tailor it to like what you want, which is awesome. And I think that's really key about this cockpit is that I can do a full screen PFD presentation over here. I can split screen it, and it's very, very customizable depending on how you like to fly. Yeah, it's also very easy to read from this side. Like, I feel like a lot of like when you have the analog gauges, you have like that parallax and stuff, but it's nice to not have that over here. It's very easy. I also really like on the TXI EIS over here how you have like, instead of just the kind of line tapes for all of your like engine instrument readings, there's actually the gauges here. Just a nice little touch. It's almost like you're looking at like the analog gauges. It's a cool design difference. And they are very easy to read at a glance too. It's not like I'm hunting or trying to determine is it, you know, in the yellow or are we redlining or anything like that. And then also any pertinent engine notifications also come up on the primary flight display, so they're definitely easy to catch. The airplane itself feels like very similar, just in like, I mean, it's almost the same except it's got the wrong type of tail in the back. You know, you're supposed to have a V back there. But I mean, in terms of just where you're sitting, the cabin, like the look of the airplane, the feel of it, even though it's heavier, it's very similar. But I mean, the panel and like everything in here is completely different. Like, the seats are separated. Like, mine has a bench seat. There's just the little things like that that make the cabin different. And I mean, like, all of this is very ergonomically placed, where in my Bonanza, I don't think they really had much thought about that. So it's all kind of a little weird, and it took a lot of getting used to, where I think this would be like easier to jump into from like a trainer plane, for example. So in terms of the avionics, We have the GI-275 attitude indicator over here, which looks very familiar. But this big flight display is completely new to me. I've never flown with like a Garmin big touchscreen like this. I've seen the G1000 before, but I've never seen this one, and it's so cool how you can configure everything. I love all the touchscreen stuff. I think like the knobs are, the option to use either is super nice.
Right.
And I just love how you can configure everything exactly how you want it. I'm curious to see how SmartGlide works, and then also like the autopilot, play around with that a little bit. The autopilot has a screen. Mine does not have a screen.
Yeah.
The GFC 500 doesn't.
So it has a screen up here, and it also has a display up here too,
so this
which is really nice. Like,
this is the scoreboard, right?
Yep.
Or the, is that what you call it? Okay, so it shows it here and then also up there.
Right.
Got it. Where mine is kind of on the bottom of the tape of the attitude indicator. Yeah.
Right. So Stevie, we're straight and level at 5,500 feet out in the middle of nowhere, Kansas. Go ahead and select the SmartGlide button.
Oh my gosh. So I just hit it.
Yes.
I just, okay. I'm like,
SmartGlide active. Engaging autopilot. Airport. 2 o'clock. 4 miles.
So here you can feel the aircraft pitching up for 110, and I'm going to bring the power back just ever so slightly. You can see it turn towards the airport for us.
it's pitching up to get to SGlide.
And what's nice, like you mentioned earlier, I'm hands-off at this point, so I've had an engine failure, something has happened, I can start running through my checklist, knowing that the airplane is not going to stall, that it's pitching for best glide automatically for me, and I can really run through my emergency checklist, and then when I get through those, then I can be eyes outside the cockpit looking for those emergency landing fields or the airport itself in that case.
Wow, it's just goes. That's so cool. So what happens when it gets here? What is
Maneuver
it going to...
and land.
Oh, okay, it yells at you.
Gotcha. 2 miles.
So within 2 miles, it's basically prompting us, okay, you need to start maneuvering the aircraft or looking for the, maybe disengaging the autopilot and looking for the airport itself so you can land. That's so cool. That's awesome. Well, Stevie, it's been a long day and we're back down on the ground. What did you think of flying the A36?
I loved it. I mean, I love the SmartGlide feature. It's a huge safety improvement, and if I had an A36, it's like the ultimate cross-country machine, and I definitely want those big screens. But what did you think of the C35?
I love that you maintain the vintage look and feel of the cockpit, and with the addition of all of the Garmin equipment, you really added a lot of capability to your aircraft.
Sounds like if you've got a Garmin panel, there's a lot to love either way.
Well, Stevie, I would do this Showdown with you anytime. Thank you for flying with us, and we'll see you in the skies.